The National Adrenal Diseases Foundation is excited to share a story of an artist's experience through their diagnosis of Addison's disease.
Hi everyone, my name is Vinoj and I live with primary adrenal insufficiency or Addison's disease. By profession, I'm an engineer in the rail and transit industry, and outside of that, I have been writing and performing spoken word poetry over the last 10 years, and more recently, I am more of a hip hop artist performer as well.
What was your diagnosis journey?
So I didn't really know when my journey really started, but it wasn't until the same year that I got diagnosed, which was in 2019. That's when all the symptoms started to come together and form my diagnosis. So, first, it started off with not myself, but my friends and family noticing that my skin was getting a lot darker than it should be, especially in the dead of winter in Canada. For those who don't know, it can get very cold and not much sunlight either. So, for me, I just thought, maybe it was because I was going outside more often during that time and I was just getting a stronger tan than I usually do. And I did bring it up with my general practitioner, but she mentioned that it wasn't nothing that I should worry about at that time. Next came the lack of appetite. I really do love food and going out to eat and trying different things and just eating a lot. But it got to the point where I wasn't eating as much as I used to. Again, I didn't really take that as something serious. I just thought, okay, I was really busy with whatever I was doing. I may have skipped a meal here or there, and it's just the overall trend of where my life was at that point. And then it started getting a bit concerning when the stomach pain and the nausea hit. So, outside of my regular day job as working in rail and transit engineering as an engineer, I also do spoken word and hip hop music, and I write and perform that too. There was a weekend I vividly remember where I was performing back to back shows over 2 days. And after each one, I would feel really nauseous and I'd really have this bad stomach pain, and I would be throwing up after each performance. And then I head to the next show and pretty much repeat. And I remember I was in my friend's car driving back. He was dropping me off home, and I had to ask him to pull over just so that I can clear out whatever it is. I just thought it was food poisoning, thought it would pass. And then came the energy drain, where it would get to the point where I would feel so weak getting up, brushing my teeth, showering. It felt like I was doing some intense workout that I lost a lot of motivation that I had. I would slow down, not do as much as I used to. After I was done work, I would come home and just go straight to sleep because I just had and no energy for anything else. Throughout this process, I didn't realize that I was losing a lot of weight. Looking back, I realized that I had lost 20 pounds in the span of 2 months, which is quite drastic. But at that time, I just thought there was just all these random things happening at the same time and they couldn't be related. And my family doctor was thinking the same as well because she didn't think that, they'll all be interconnected in some kind of way. There was one point where I did go to the hospital at the emergency. They ruled it as food poisoning as well and told me to go home and take some rest. But 2 weeks later, it got really bad where I just throwing up, couldn't keep any food in, and I just felt so weak. And it was then that my family doctor realized that it could be something more. It could be, she actually suggested that it could be adrenal insufficiency. So, based on their recommendation, the hospital actually kept me in. They admitted me, and for a whole week, they were doing a bunch of tests to test out my cortisol levels, to test where the deficiency may be happening. And they eventually ruled that it is primary adrenal insufficiency or Addison's disease, which I never heard of until that moment, as they told me that it's quite a rare disease. At the age of 25, I didn't expect to be diagnosed with something this severe, especially at that age. I thought I was young and invincible, that, nothing would really happen to me until much later on. And I would never have to rely on medications for the rest of my life. So it was quite a drastic switch for me. And it was from that point onwards that I knew that I had to make some changes in my life, even though it's not something that I want to accept at that moment. And that's when my journey living with Addison's really began.
How did your diagnosis impact your art?
So it wasn't until now that I really actually thought about how my diagnosis impacted my art. And taking that journey back and reflecting on the kind of music and poetry that I've released in the past couple of years, ever since my diagnosis, I do feel like there has been a shift. So before my diagnosis, I was mainly a spoken word artist where I would share poetry, combine it with a little bit of musical elements, but not too much. And it had a very certain style to it, especially it was very personal, reflective, a little bit of spiritual elements, and really captured, I felt like only one side of myself. But after experiencing the whole diagnosis journey, the adrenal crisis, and learning how fatal a crisis can be, that whole life is short concept just flashed in my mind. And I realized that there was a lot more that I wanted to do with my art. And I didn't want to just stay within my comfort zone and stay what I'm familiar with. So this is when I started dabbling a bit more in hip hop and rap music. So more musical elements, a lot more different emotions, and I want to express more sides of myself to show that, hey, I'm a human being. I experience so many different emotions just like everyone else, and I want to capture that everyday life that we all live in my art. So there was so in my music that I've released, I definitely have a lot more uplifting tones, a bit of anger from the Temple to Castle song, which is actually about my diagnosis journey and just the frustrations that I've experienced with that. And I've never done anything that aggressive before, but I still have that side in me because that's as humans we have all those different emotions. And also I feel like the medium through which my I guess my thoughts no longer matter. It's like where would I go next? It could be either singing, it could be visual arts, it could be something that's totally different as long as I get to still capture my emotions, capture what I'm feeling in that moment through whatever I feel challenged by. And I think that's what I feel like this that less fear that I'm now feeling because of my diagnosis to really push myself out of my comfort zone, challenge myself in new ways, and find what is the best way that I can express this thought so that anyone else can enjoy it too.
How can music, poetry, and art impact the adrenal community?
So, music, poetry, and art, I feel like in general, has an impact on all communities. It is very therapeutic, it's very healing, and especially for myself, I connect very much to music. It helps me get through the highs and the lows in life. So, when I think about the adrenal community, I think about when we originally get diagnosed, we're often told by the healthcare system that, this is a very rare disease, and especially when you Google it online, it tells you that it's very unlikely for you to meet someone else who has the same diagnosis as you. So I feel like this really puts us in a place where we feel lonely, we feel like there's not as many people that we can connect to, and it's very hard to overcome this obstacle that we're facing. So I really do feel like the music, poetry, art, whatever it is, can really bring together this adrenal community, can really connect us beyond the little walls and the bubbles that we live in and connect us across the globe because art is a very universal language and I feel like anyone can relate to it. And especially when we make art that is very tailored towards the adrenal community about the journeys that we go through, I think that's when we feel like we are not truly alone. That there are probably thousands and thousands, if not millions, of others who are just like us too, and that it's really not that much of a rare disease. So I think art is the best way that we can break down these boundaries, feel less alone, and really feel like we are part of a community that can help support and inspire each other.
What can you create through your diagnosis? In honor of Adrenal Disease Awareness Month, we are inviting other adrenal warriors to use their imagination, get creative, and get inspired by their adrenal disease. Whether it's writing, painting, knitting, singing, sculpting, drawing, or whatever art form you prefer, We would love to see how your diagnosis inspired your creation. Be sure to use the hashtags MyAddisonsMyArt and AADAM2021 so we can see and share a collection of everyone's art and their incredible journey.
There's no more time to heal. Got you jacked up on these meds now. How does it feel? This ain't multiple sclerosis. Double check the bill. My name is Addison, y'all. What's the deal? It's war. I'ma be fighting this battle till I hit the floor. You'll be the one to be taking the punches as I strip away your core. This makes me making me wired, giving me fuel to take you on more. This is the mind of the soldier, not taking an L when walking out the door. Who's keeping score? Body was a temple before you washed ashore. Before you drain me off my energy, leaving me gasping on a